Hello everyone, how are you? As you may know, I got my degree in cell biology and genetics, and combined with learning some programming and my interest in Arduino and robotics, I decided to put those together this week and create Flembot. Come on in, Flembot. There, look at that. That's Flembot for you. Give it a little wave, Flembot. Yeah. So Flembot, I created because I know a lot of you guys are working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning, and I just, I need to get my sleep. So Flembot is going to be taking over during that time, so you might be getting this week some messages from Flembot, okay? A few other things, during the day, doesn't need to sleep, that Flembot. I've got him doing some chores, so he's cleaning, he's doing some cooking, he's doing some, yes. Play with you? A little busy, but Flembot could help you out. What do you think, Flembot? Yeah, why don't you go play with Flembot? Go play with Flembot! Okay. So go play with Flembot. Yeah. Oh, Flembot is amazing. But let me know if there's any bugs or any issues. Let me know. But otherwise, he might be on the board helping you out this week. Have a great week. See ya.
Warning: Flembot 0.1 is in beta testing. Use at your own risk. Hello and welcome to Challenge 4. This week we're going to focus a little bit more on graphics. Now you've already seen that there are some sprites that you have access to. You can also copy and paste and bring things in, but there's also an ability to draw and sort of create your own, which is kind of fun as well, especially now that we don't have access to Photoshop or any other of those tools that we had at school. Being able to do this kind of is a fun thing to do. So we'll take a look at that. The instructions here go through a few of the ideas, but I'm going to step you through it. Again, as we work through these lessons, make sure that you don't follow me word for word or step by step. Take a few opportunities to experiment a bit and see what you can do. But our goal this week is just going to come down here, is to create some sort of background that looks like this. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but something like this, and a sprite that looks something like this. And then we will sort of put it together in a bit of a game there. Now, if you are too young to know Flappy Bird was this game that for some reason, I guess because of its infuriating difficulty level, became very, very popular. And in fact, the creator of it was so upset that he had created a game so addictive that he tried to get rid of it or sold everything and tried to make no money from it. It was just sort of one of those interesting sort of cultural phenomena at the time. Ask me when, I'd say about 2014 perhaps, maybe a little bit earlier, something around then. Anyways, let's go into Scratch here, and you can sort of create a new Scratch, or I got too many windows open here, there we go. And I'm going to show you how to sort of make this here. So I'm actually just going to bin this guy here. I was just practicing myself. Now, one thing that I would do at the start here is just to, let me show you where to get these backdrops. So down here, there was the sprite, okay? But right beside it is the backdrop. And then right in here is you can click on paint, and then that sort of takes you to a backdrop that you can sort of start to draw on. Now there's a bunch of tools here. You can sort of play around with them a little bit, but I'll give you some basic ideas here. First off, whenever you're drawing, you want to sort of think about what would go in the back, what would go in the front. So we're going to put the sky in the back. I'm just going to try to find a nice blue there. And again, you can sort of play around with these, watching this color up here. That looks pretty good. So I've got a nice blue, and simply to make that the background, there's a fill, and if I click on here, maybe it doesn't. I think I could maybe draw a rectangle. There we are. And I can change the size. And there we go. And if you don't like it later on, you can change the color. Okay, I'm just trying to do this relatively quickly here. Now, if we go back to what we need to do, you'll notice that there was sort of a ground, sort of a mountainous background. So let's put that in as well, and then we'll do the clouds. So to me, the easiest way would be to draw a rectangle again. Maybe right away change the color. Oops, that's going to change that color, so let me not do that. Let me draw this first. Okay, let me get back onto this. I think I just have to click off somewhere here. Okay. I keep dragging on this. Let me click on that first. Okay, get off that. Go back into a new tool. There we go. Okay, so there is my new one, and it's a little hard to see. I'm just going to create something relatively that covers the whole thing and change the color there. And so this one, probably some sort of green color. Again, up to you. This is looking darker than I wanted, but anyways, there's a nice green. And so you might say, well, that's just, I want mountains. Well, the way to do that is this little tool here, the reshape tool, and it's very useful. You just sort of click right on top, and it's a little hard to see because it's a blue color, but it created a little, what we call a node, and then I can drag that node up and down. And in fact, I can grab this one. Yeah, I can drag that one too, bring that down, and oops, now if I make a mistake, Control Z will undo. Okay, what I'm trying to do is get back onto this guy. Oh well, I'll just move this over. And then I've got this one. You might notice there's little, what we call handles, and you can sort of pull those handles back and forth a little bit. I don't know where the handle went on this guy, but that's okay. I'll just deal with it. There's this guy. There's that handle. Okay. And then sort of move it around so that you can create your sort of mountain scene. Okay, so I'm going to maybe pull this one up, pull this one down. And you can spend more time than I am. I'm doing this relatively quickly to create a couple little mountains. Okay, I'm not particularly happy with that, but for the, whoops, and I accidentally pulled the wrong thing. For the time I spent, sure, that's pretty good. Okay, so I've got some mountains there. Clouds, again, so what I would do is just do some circles. And again, you might want to change the color right away. So this one, I think if we reduce the saturation, increase the brightness, and make sure there's no outline on it, you've got a circle. You can Control C and Control V, okay? Control C and V will give you copy and paste, and then you can just sort of rearrange this so that it becomes like looking like a cloud, okay? And whatever you want to have it. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time doing that, but then you've got a cloud that looks kind of decent. Now, instead of doing this process all over again, what you could do is you can hold the Shift key and select them all. So I'm just holding Shift down and clicking it again. You can actually group them if you want. So if you group, now this nice thing, this is all one group. Oops, I missed one. So let me just take this, put this back. Actually, I don't even need that. It was just an extra one. So there's that group there. Now, what I could do is I could copy and paste. So Control C and Control V. If you forget those, they're right there as well. Okay. And then just, so I'm Control Ving a couple times and putting them in. Okay. There we go. Now, the last thing, just sort of to go back to my document there to remind myself, is these sort of pipes, okay? And if you look at them, they're really just two rectangles, okay? One on top of the other. Now they've got a green, and then they've got a sort of a border on them, a darker green. So we'll follow that. This little white is just an accent there to make it look sort of three-dimensional. So pretty simple. So I'll just go back to Scratch and do that. Sorry, as I go through all my windows. And so I'd simply take the rectangle. Okay, probably, makes it a little bit easier if I find that color first. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure, and actually give that a little bit of a, maybe I'll do a little bit of a black sort of outline on it. Sure. Okay, make sure that you're going to do the same color each time. Whoops. So I'm going to make one, and then I'm just going to modify it. I need another guy here to do the top, something like that. And then one more, which is going to be our white. So just get rid of our saturation. Whoops, doing the wrong one. So let me just do this again here. Now what you'll notice here is if I go back, okay, there's that there. Usually there's a selection of the colors, but you can use the paint dropper if you forget it. And then you can make sure that you match up that same color. Now I made that a little bit too big, and I'll just move it over. And then just sort of click off of it just to see. So that looks pretty good. Okay, and then just that little bit of white as well. So now that I've clicked off of it, I can choose white. I've chosen the wrong thing now. I have to admit, it's not the most user-friendly thing once in a while here. Okay, let's just actually just go all the way and make sure that that's white. And it was just simply a little one there. Okay, and I've got a little bit of a border some reason, but I'll fix that up after. Oh no, I think we're okay. So there it is there. Now, what I can do is grab 3, okay, and I can duplicate them again, or I could group them. So Control C, Control V, there's another one. And then the easiest thing to do is if you want it bigger, you just scale it up, okay? And you can always push it into the ground. And then I can Control V again. There it is there. And this one I can forward backwards, I think. Oh, no, sorry, there were flip vertical. So there it is. And then I can throw it up there. And I can make it smaller, whatever I have to do, okay, to get it in there. Probably this one. I'm just going to move it over a little bit. And this one. And maybe I'll duplicate this one too. Okay, and then I can flip it vertical again. There we go. And now, yep, and just sort of stuff it in the top. Okay, now this might be a little bit tricky. And don't worry about it being perfect at the start, because there's always the play testing. So if they're too narrow, they're not lined up, whatever the case is, we can fix that up after. One last thing that you might find is that for some reason this cloud say becomes in the front. So if you click on front here and you say, well, the cloud shouldn't be in front of that, you can always click on it and send it backward. Now what generally, oh, so that went too far back, so if that happens, make sure the background goes all the way back, okay? But generally the idea is that whatever you drew last is the most recent, but then you can move things forward and backward. Oh, sorry, there is front and back. This one is forward and backward. All right, just a very quick go over here of the Flappy Bird himself or herself. Basically, we're going to make 2 of them. Notice they're identical except for the wing, and so there's a really quick way of doing it. Now, I'm going to just start it off, and then I'll just speed it up because you'll be able to get the idea from doing the last one. The most important thing, so obviously we're going to create a sprite. Whoops, I didn't mean to go to that one. Let's just go back. Click on here. You can paint, just like we could a background. And so we can make a costume. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there's a little dot there. That's the origin, okay? And so we just have to be cognizant of that. So if I'm going to draw my little circle here, okay, and one of the things is that I can't see it at the moment, so I'm going to just turn off my fill. And then what I'm going to make sure is that my Flappy Bird, now I can't see it, my Flappy Bird, wherever that circle went, okay, let me just give it a outline here. There we go. And maybe make it a little thicker. Oops, there we go. Okay, there we go. The center lines up. So you can see right there, there's sort of that target, and then the crosshairs, they need to match up. I'm going to make the body a little bit, let's just see here. Okay, and then once I get that, that's good. Don't worry too much about the size. When we put it into the game, we can always change the size up there. There's no problem. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do this relatively quickly and putting it together. So I'm going to speed up the video here. Won't say much, but it's just basically me creating this here. Just a bunch of circles. All right, now that we've got all our, basically our graphics done, right? We've got our background and we've got our sprite. What we have to do next is the programming part. Now, one thing I'll just mention, because I didn't mention it before, make sure you do not convert to bitmap. Remember, converting to bitmap, if you remember back to when we did Photoshop, That's things that are pixel based, and that means the image is a bunch of little tiny squares, and that's very difficult to modify. Basically, you need something like Photoshop, and even then, doing selections, as you know, is a little bit tricky. If you convert it or keep it as a vector, vectors are sort of those self-contained shapes. You saw those circles and rectangles, much easier to work with. So make sure you don't click accidentally convert to bitmap. Now, the next parts here are really the programming, and to a certain extent, you should be able to do this all on your own, okay? So if you want to stop the video and try to do these things, go ahead. The idea is that we need it to get to, change the costume, okay, every 0.1 seconds. So this is going to be the idea of just sort of getting it to oscillate or to go between the costumes. Pretty simple to do, although that's a little bit new, so I'll go through that with you if you need me to. Create a script that makes the sprite move forward forever. You've done that, so that should be no trouble. If the sprite touches the pipe, it should go back to the start. Now that's a little bit of a change, but again, if you look through the code, you'll be able to figure it out, and the hint with that is the color. Okay, so if you collides with a color, okay, comes in contact with a color, you can get it to do something. Okay, and then make it so the user can control the sprite to go up and down by pressing the arrow keys. Again, you've done that. So a lot of these things we've been building over the last few weeks, you should be able to put them into play here. Now, number 6, it says not mandatory. For an extra challenge, you can try to make the bird's movement more similar to the actual Flappy Bird. So if you've never played the real Flappy Bird, it always wants to fall to the ground, and you have to press the space bar to keep it up, okay? So that makes it a little bit more difficult. You could also try to do a you win backdrop, okay? So if the player makes it to the end, then you can see how that would work, right? You could create sort of a new scene and change it or change something, okay? Change the background somehow. So those are little things for you to play around with. I won't go over them in the video, but you can definitely sort of challenge yourself to figure those out. So let's go back and take a look here. Now, one thing is, right, I've got the backdrop, so I just sort of changed the backdrop there, making sure you just sort of, bring it in is all you have to do. And then your sprite, I mean, you could bring in, I already got my sprite in there. Now, one thing is the cat's there, you can get rid of the cat, right? So the cat's gone. Like I said, the size might be a little bit too big, so I'm going to reduce the size of my sprite. I'm going to go to about maybe half that size, even less, I think, just to get him through that, so I don't have to go change the backdrop. I'll make him about 20. There you go, nice small little bird. Okay, and don't forget, when you play it full size, it's actually a decent size here. It seems kind of small at the moment. So there's our bird. What we want to do, let's get the first thing, the animation. So again, you might want to not listen to me here, stop it and try it on your own. But what I'm going to do is go into the events and basically, into the control, I guess. Well, I'm going to do the events as well. I'm going to put a forever. We need to get something to start with. Okay, so when the thing is clicked, forever. And what you'll be able to find is actually something called switch costume. Okay, so if I sort of go down through here, there's all these different ones. Oops, I must have passed it. We're close to here. Costume number. Okay, there we go. Ah, there we are. Switch back. So there's a switch backdrop you might find. Switch to costume 2, or there's next costume. So if I did this next costume and I hit play here, I'm not sure what this program will do. Yeah, you don't actually see anything, and the problem is computers are really quick, so you need some sort of delay. So we need to find a little bit of a delay there. I don't know if it's in control. Wait, there we are. Wait seconds. Okay, and 1 second is probably too slow. I found that about 0.1 is a good number. When you click play, then you'll notice that his wings are quote-unquote flapping. Okay, so you can kind of see it right here. And so that's the idea. All right, so once you've got that, which is pretty simple, what we need to do is probably start the game at the far left, okay? So I'm gonna just take my sprite, and I should just be able to drag him over. And one of the nice things about Scratch is that it tries to make it as easy as possible. So if you come over here, you'll notice that the position is set already. So at negative 219 and 22. So if that's where I want to start, or I could even push it a little bit over, you'll even notice now it's 231. So that is where I kind of want him to start, is at that position. So at the very beginning of the game, I'm going to put that right up here. Make sure it's not in the forever loop or else he'll never move. But what I basically want is at the beginning of the game, he is going to be right there. Okay, so that gets us to the start. So let's just say, he's over here, and I hit play, he goes right to the start. Okay, now another thing we want to do is obviously get him moving forward, right? That was one of the things. So we know how to do that. We just do these move steps, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw it into here. Okay, and now again, this is going to determine the speed. So you might have to play around a little bit with that. That's not a bad speed, okay? But you might want to slow it down or speed it up, depending on your on what you feel is good for your game. Next thing, we needed to move up and down. Well, you already know how to do that, right? So you could change Y by and change Y by. So I'll bring those both over. And we know that our input, so the event, right, is when we clicked certain keys. So probably the up and down. So up arrow will make it positive, down arrow will make it negative. And again, the number here, I'm just putting the number in. You have to experiment. Not bad. Okay, and he goes off to the side. So again, hit play. Yep, good. Now we're almost there. The only thing that we have to do is get it to sort of end if we run into this. So in order to do that, we look for sensing. Okay, so it's going to detect something. And we used something before when it touched another sprite, but you can also use by this touching color. So obviously this is not enough as a block. We need to say basically an if, right? So if, where was that? If it's touching the color, okay, and you're going to choose the color here. There's you can either choose the specific one, that's pretty hard, or use the dropper tool. Dropper tool is the best. And so just click on that green. Okay, so if he touches that color, what's going to happen? Well, maybe for just simplicity, let's just go back to this spot here. So I'm just going to put another go to. Let me just see. I'm going to copy that, paste that. So Control C, Control V, and I'm just going to get rid of everything but this little bit. And there we go. Okay, so let's test this out. Okay, so fine. Oh. Okay, so that didn't seem to work. Now, what the trouble is that this by itself can't work on its own. So we need to make sure it's forever detecting that. So throw that into a forever block. Let's just see if that works. So it's still not working. And the reason why it's not working is that it needs this. It needs to start working. There we go. So last chance, let's see. Okay, now it's not working, or it's working, sorry. So yeah, working fine. Okay, so the game here, if I just went it straight forward, I died. Okay, at the moment obviously it's not too challenging of a game, but you can make it a bit more challenging. Good. So those blocks, okay, give you the functionality of the game. Like I said, I haven't given you everything to do with the not mandatory stuff, so you could think about what might happen if it gets to the edge, how you could either restart the game or say you win, like change the backdrop or something like that. You could do it with the gravity, so it's always wanting to fall, and you have to press the space bar to jump it up, okay? So you could think about, we've got forever wanting to fall, right? And then when you press the space bar, something happens. So you can think about that instead of just being able to use these up and down arrows. It has a bit of a different dynamic. All right, but at least get this done this week, okay? But my big idea here is to play around with it so that you can test things out and try to make it a little bit more your own creation. All right, Good luck with that.